welcome back to the Digital Khanate. What I'd like to do is bring you along for a little bit of the progression of creating this hopper in Procreate Dreams. So far I have 3 layers total. One is the base color, one is a white highlights, and then the new layer will hold a darker blue. So what I'm trying to do is make sure that I have the base color and that I choose a color that's just a little bit darker so I can show some of the shadows. Now that that's chosen, I can go in and start adding a little bit of shading. That wasn't quite the right color. It's a little bit better. So now I've sped up the footage so it's easier to get through this time-consuming effort. What I had forgotten was to create a new layer for each frame. Had to go back and redo those layers, those first ones. As you can see, I'm not taking very long on some of these. Like, I have a basic idea of where the shading should be, and I'll be going back again to edit them or to make them better. Start with the ear and the cheekbones. Just adding a little bit of shade in there to give depth. And as the head moves forward, there's going to be more shade in there. And here's a quick run through of what I have so far. What I'm doing here is just making sure that that darker color is underneath the chin. Certain areas can be pretty quick to shade. Not as much detail given until a little bit later, after a few passes. So I'm adding a little bit of shading to the back of the cranium. So sometimes you have to mess around with the opacity, size of the brush, the type of brush also. It's just a matter of finding what works for you. Add a little more color to the, just behind the ear. I'm going to run through it again just to see how it looks. So far it's getting the depth that I want. And I've gone back to the white layer, the highlight layer. And I'm trying to do the brow ridge, brow area. One of the good things about using these layers is that you can kind of put them down kind of quickly and then go back and edit them with an eraser if it looks too thick or if it was placed in the wrong area. So here I'm just gonna go, it's at a higher frame rate, so it's going quicker than actual time for brevity. As the head bends down less, there's less need for highlight there at the brow ridge, the brow line. As it pops back up, there's going to be more white highlighted area at the brow. Again, this is a moment where I'm taking off some of the highlight with an eraser. Just on that specific layer. Now here I've noticed that there's the base layer has little parts missing, like it's not going all the way to the black line, the original line art. So what I'm going to be doing here is changing the color of the background so it's easier to see the holes, the parts that are missing color in the base layer. The onion skin actually gives you the opportunity to see some of those little pockets that are missed. So now I'm going to change the background layer to kind of a tannish brown. But at this moment I'm just kind of experimenting, trying to figure out which color would look better. And I've settled on a kind of a golden tannish color. Then in this section, what I plan to do is add a shadow. Got to add another layer, but this time it has to fit. It has to show up behind the base layer. And the two layers above it are attached to the base layer. They're clipped to it, so that when you draw the only the colors, only the areas that are using the base layer as a reference will be colored. So what I'm trying to do this time is get the layer lower than the base layer underneath. At this point I'm looking for a brush that's gives a little bit of texture. I end up settling on the noise brush, I believe. So here I kind of make a mistake. I add a layer which kind of disconnects the upper layers from their act of being clipped to the base layer. So that white highlights and the darker shades are visible. All I really have to do is go back into the white layer, press clipping mask again, and it attaches itself to the base layer, hiding all those extra strokes at the bottom. And do the same with the dark blue layer. Clip it again. And then now, because the bottom layer is not clipped to the base layer, it'll show up behind the base layer. Now I'm just checking to see how dark it is. It's too dark and too concentrated. So I'll lower the opacity and probably lower the size of the brush, but that looks good. And I'm going to start on the shadow under the foot. After I kind of decide that I like the effect, what I'll do is speed up the video again and just go through the process real quick. The first and last frame are the ones that give me the most difficulties. The first frame, just trying to make sure that I have a good consistency and make sure that it's the same all the way through to the next one. Again, I have to create another layer, put it underneath the base layer, start again. So far it's been pretty easy because the foot hasn't moved very far. As soon as that heel comes up, it starts becoming a little bit more difficult. But because the front of the toe area, the ball of the foot, is still connected to the ground, I still have a pretty good reference of where things are supposed to go. Now as the foot comes off of the ground, the shadow should be a little lighter than it was before because it's no longer making contact. You have to be mindful of where the heel is. Now luckily the onion skin still gives me an idea of where that shadow should be in respect to where the feet are now. So I still have a point of reference to where the footprint should be because of the onion skin again. So this last frame is the more difficult one. Just have to try to match to where it was, where the last shadow was. Here I was trying to see if I could copy paste the last location, but I couldn't find a copy paste to take just that layer and move it over to the next one. So I just had to guess. But it ended up working out. So now let's see what that looks like. It doesn't look too bad. So now my intention is to go back into the white layer and use that static brush to add a bit of highlights to the top of the cranium and eventually the cheekbones and the area just above the mouth near the nose. Have to be mindful, of course, of how much light, as the head moves forward, the light in front of the face is going to be less. There will be more shadows there. What I'm trying to do is make sure that the when the head is upright, that the highlights on the top of the cranium reach toward the brow line. I have to go back to the first frame to make sure that it's consistent with the last frame. Let's see what it looks like real quick. Now we're going to concentrate on adding those same highlights to the heel and the the nose first and the cheeks, like the upper lip and the cheek line. I'm going to speed it up again so that the process goes quicker. Again, if as the head moves forward, there's less light on the cheekbones and the upper lip near the nose. This frame is going to have the least amount of highlights. And the highlights will return as the head is straight up again. Again, it has to be consistent with some of the first frames because the head was upright as well, not tilted forward. Let's see what it looks like. It looks pretty consistent. So now this time we're going to work on the heel and the top of the foot. There's going to be very little white highlight on these first few frames because the head's above it, casting a shadow down. As the head tilts forward, there's going to be more highlight on the heel. And the back of the neck. So it's kind of tedious, difficult work to go back and forth. But at least it's only 9 frames, so it makes it a little easier than something that's 30 frames or more. But it is a lot of work. My plan for the next full video is to take away the original black line art and add some darker highlights in there to replace the black line art. This is what it looks like so far. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe.